Okay, I think I am live there now. I'm hope that you can hear me okay and that the sound is acceptable. Happy Easter to everybody, and obviously welcome to this first live stream. I want to just knock off the sound on the PC here because I'm keeping an eye on the comments on my iMac. It's just handier. The first thing I want to do is wish you all a happy Easter, especially D Fresher and Lobster Mac and so on. There's a couple of questions there I want to just deal with first, and do my best in terms of looking at them. The buy to let property market now, and specifically the legal issues to do with tenants, etc., not paying rent. That's a serious problem in this country because in Ireland, whether you like it or not, there is a fair degree of protection for tenants. And if a problem arises, then it is a significant problem for the landlord. You're looking at the Residential Tenancies Board, you're looking at a long process. I made a video there last week. I haven't published it yet, but in it I recall two incidents where I have residential investment property myself because I was actually stuck with it, having built apartments down in Longford. But once I did, then I landed down one weekend to pick up the rent and discovered that the tenant was gone. There was a little dog inside chewing the leg off the table, and when I made inquiries from the neighbours, it had transpired that the tenant had been arrested and had been carted off to Castlereagh prison. So that was a serious difficulty because you're looking at then probably realistically a 6-month period during which you are trying to recover rent, you're trying to regain possession of the property and so on. It is a difficult situation. As I say, tenants in this country have a fair degree of protection, a great degree of protection, and from the landlord's perspective, it's difficult. And theoretically, the whole question of residential lettings and building up a property portfolio and so forth is an attractive proposition, but the reality is quite different. The reality is, for example, I had another tenant who I had to take 6 or 9 months to try to get out of the apartment. There was arrears of rent and so on and so forth. So you can do your calculations, you can do your spreadsheets, you can do an analysis of incomings and outgoings and interest rates and so on and so forth. But if you have a fallow period of 6 months or 9 months, and it can happen in a residential investment property, well then you're going to have your calculations and your proposal is going to go out the window. So all of the best laid plans of mice and men go out the window when it comes to residential investment property in this country. As I say, theoretically it's a great idea. Theoretically it looks good. Theoretically you can build up a chain or a huge amount of equity in a series of properties, but the reality on the ground is more problematic. I'm not putting you off it entirely, but I would say to you that you need to factor in many periods of no activity or no rent rather. So deep fresher lobster mac. Michael Dunn is asking, I'm working 12-hour shit today. I presume he means shift. My employer pays me 12 hours and then 8 hours. Am I entitled to 12 plus 12 as my contract states double time on bank holidays? You probably are if your contract says you're entitled to double time on bank holidays. Joshua Everett. Hi Terry, my father has an old barn that I want to develop into 3 houses. How do I change ownership of the land into my name without paying inheritance taxes? Is it best to do it through a limited company? No, I don't think it is best to do it through a limited company. If it's your father, then you're going to have a significant amount of relief in terms of capital acquisitions tax. So I think it's over $250,000 of an exemption in relation to a gift from father to a son or parent to a child or a bequest in a will. So obviously your father, it's an old barn. It would want to be a fairly spectacular barn to have a value of in excess of $250,000. So from a taxation perspective and a legal perspective, you should be able to receive that barn without any difficulty in terms of taxation. Developing it into three houses then is an entirely different matter. It's very unlikely that if you have a barn in a rural area, where I live, for example, is a rural area, it's very unlikely you're going to get planning permission, quite frankly, for a three houses on it. But if you do, well and good, more luck to you. But the limited company situation, I don't think is really necessary there, you know. And the tax situation, inheritance tax, $250,000, I think it is at the moment. All you have to do is go to the revenue website, go for capital acquisitions tax, do a search for the capital allowances or the current allowances, and you'll see. Let me see now. I work as a DJ. DJ Fernando Von. He works as a DJ. A wedding client booked him last year, has asked him for a refund due to the hotel being closed. What do you think? My contract says 50% cancellation fee, but not sure. That is a question of contract. Obviously, the contract there, through no fault of yours and no fault of the guy who booked you, cannot proceed because of the coronavirus situation, because of the operation of law, quite frankly, and the obligation on hotels and restaurants and so forth to close down. So, you know, if I was you, to be honest with you, I think I'd be giving them the money back. That would be my view. Whether that's legally the situation or not, I don't know, but I think the contract there may well be seen to be frustrated as a result of the COVID-19 situation. Mohammed El Badawi is looking for advice. He was meant to see kids yesterday. He was surprised. She texted me. She left the county and went to her elderly parents, an hour and a half driving. Can I report that to Garda? Don't know. Haven't a clue. It depends on what arrangement is in place between you and her in terms of access to the children and so on. I mean, you may well have a court order for access. You may not have a court order for access. You may just have an informal arrangement with her. You may have a formal arrangement with her. You may have been married to her. You may have been a partner of hers. It all depends on the circumstances. And that is a difficulty with me trying to answer questions and the type of question that I'm expected to answer on a live stream like this. This is my first one, and the whole question of giving legal advice is a problem. And I can't really give legal advice about specific situations, specific circumstances. I can give general sort of information and so on. Craig Murphy. Hello, Craig. Hi, Terry. Love the videos. Thank you. How much would a solicitor fee be for a 235 grand house, or does it vary on the price of a house? It does vary on the price of a house, but you're probably looking at around about 1250 plus VAT to 1500 quid plus VAT for the professional legal fee. That's the conveyancing fee. On top of that, you will have 1% stamp duty, which is 2,350 in your case. You're going to have property registration authority fee of, I think it's 700 quid. If you're borrowing money from the bank, you're going to have another property registration authority fee of 175 euros. You're going to have miscellaneous fees of about 100 euros. You're going to have legal searches on closing of about 100 to 130, and you're going to have commissioner for oaths fees of about 30 quid. That's a fair estimate as far as I can do. D. Fresher, voluntary transfer of property is what I need to know about. It's already happened from my father to my brother, and I got 3/5 and my brother got 2/5. It happened in December. So my question is, don't know what the question is. Should I be now paying house insurance and property tax? Well, that's entirely a matter for, obviously the property tax LPT is a question for the registered owner. So whoever are the registered owners would be responsible for LPT. House insurance is just a good idea. So whether it's you or your father or your brother, I'm not sure whether your father passed away or whether he just gifted you the house, you and your brother. But in any event, insurance is certainly a good idea, yeah. And LPT is a question of the revenue commissioners, when the property is transferred into your name, even by way of a voluntary transfer, if it's done correctly and it's registered with the Property Registration Authority, what happens is a stamp certificate with the revenue commissioners is done for the purpose of the transfer. And the PPS numbers of the recipients or the donees, as it were, in your situation, will go into the Revenue Commissioners and you'll be registered. But the LPT then will be updated because Revenue control LPT, they'll know who's the registered owner, and the registered owner will be liable for the LPT. Simon Martin Anthony O'Maricon. Hello Terry, what's your opinion on the authors and books Murdoch and Hunt's Dictionary of Irish Law 6th edition? Simon Martin, I haven't a buzz, quite frankly. I don't know anything about these dictionaries. I'm sure your question has another purpose, as it were. I'm sure you're not just asking me in general terms, but I've an easy way out, quite frankly. I don't know anything about those dictionaries, and I don't get too hung up about the legal definitions of X, Y, or Z once I understand the main principles and purpose of various bits of legislation. Skilt. Hi Terry, just thank you. Enjoy your blogs very much. Thank you very much. Carl Luke, do you think house prices will fall? Haven't a clue, Carl, but it's unlikely in the current climate that they're going to raise or go up in price very much. It's a very, very uncertain time, and let's face it, the economies and stock exchanges right across the world, from America to Germany to France to Spain, Italy, everywhere else, have absolutely calved, and it's very, very hard to see with depression or a recession of depression-like proportions, very hard to see property prices rising to any great extent in the near term. But in the medium term, short and long term, I'm always a fan of property, to be honest with you. Hi Terry, Murray's Rossiter. If you're planning on doing a self-build, do you try to get planning permission first on the site and then pay for the site through the mortgage, or what way does it work? Best thing to do, Murray's, is to ensure you get the planning permission. The best thing to do is to get the site first, or at least get an option on the site first, because you want the valuation and the transfer of the site to be done at the value of the site before you get the planning permission. There's a huge difference between getting planning permission and the value that adds to a site versus not having planning permission. So a field next door to me here is going to cost, say, 10 grand, 15 grand. With planning permission, it's going to cost 50. So you got to get the timing right. You got to get the deal done, but you need to ensure that your valuation and your transfer isn't done post getting the planning permission. But if it is done post getting the planning permission, the fact that your solicitor would have a valuation, relatively recent valuation, which was carried out prior to the planning permission being granted, would be very useful, if you know what I mean. Should the deeds be in our name now? D. Fresher is asking. I have the folio in our name with Land Registry. Absolutely. The folio is the deeds. The PRA folio, Property Registration Authority folio, is proof of your ownership. That is one of the primary deeds of title that you have. After that, planning permission and stuff like that is important, but the Property Registration Authority folio is critical, and that is the starting point for your property. I'm glad to see that he's still alive. Oh, JJ, would you ever run for government? No. Kieran O'Donoghue. Hi Terry, in process of buying an apartment. I got my engineer's report, per report. It mentioned Part B of the building regulations, fire safety works needs to be carried out. Will my mortgage be approved? It is difficult to know. Your mortgage will be approved, absolutely, but the difficulty there is your solicitor may be in a difficult compromised position, because your solicitor is going to put his professional reputation and insurance on the line, and is going to certify title for the bank. So he's going to certify good title for the bank. And if your solicitor is aware of this imperfection or infirmity in your title documents or in the report, that might be a problem for him. So I'm not sure what sort of a certificate of compliance with building regulations and planning permission your solicitor has been furnished with, but he doesn't necessarily have your report. You may have shared it with him, but as I say, the bank won't necessarily know. The bank will rely on the solicitor's undertaking, but the solicitor, to be honest with you, will be running for cover if he thinks there's a problem, or if he or she is being asked to certify title where there's a difficulty or a potential difficulty with title. Anthony Nwakaji, happy Easter. Happy Easter to you, Anthony. Craig Murphy, what types of topics would be considered free legal advice from solicitors? Don't really understand that, Craig, but just in general terms, in terms of giving free legal advice, I can give free legal advice or I can give paid legal advice. But the difficulty for me giving free legal advice, quite frankly, is this. I'm a solicitor. I'm supposed to be a professional. If I give free legal advice and it's wrong, it turns out bad, you can sue me for professional negligence. You might say, why can I sue you for professional negligence? Because I haven't paid you. That's not the point. The point is I'm a solicitor, I'm a professional, and if you ask me for professional advice, you're going to be entitled to rely on it. So I'm afraid of me shite, quite frankly, if you pardon the French, of being sued for shit legal advice in circumstances where I don't get paid. In other words, if I'm going to get sued, I reserve the right to get paid in the first instance, you know. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. For example, I don't ask anybody to come around and cut my grass or paint the garage out there, you know, for free. If they do come around, I'll pay them. So I think it's unfair, a little unfair. I can understand it, but it's a bit unfair to ask for free legal advice. Simon Martin Anthony, thanks sir. Have you ever heard of anyone getting a case dismissed vacated under the 1919 Constitution, unalienable, indefeasible? No, I haven't. I won't go any further with that, Simon Martin Anthony O'Maricon. I haven't heard of that. Legally, skilled. Legally, can I purchase property, land for my kids age under 8, but we as a family have used the property to live in and work the land? Yes, I suppose you can place the land in trust for your kids, and you and somebody else, some adult, somebody over 18 can act as trustees and hold the land in trust for the benefit of the kids when they turn 18 or 21 or whatever. Carol Luke, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Carol. DJ Fernando, I'm thinking about buying land to build a small complex of studios. Should I hire a solicitor before or after the architect? How can you help me with a project like this? What are the fees approximately? I'm thinking about buying land. DJ Fernando, if you're going to buy land that's worth 10 grand, or if you're going to buy land that's worth $1 million, then there is a big difference in terms of fees and so on and so forth. So that question is not possible to answer, quite frankly. David Connolly, hello David, happy Easter, and thanks for joining this live stream. Hi Terry, love the videos. First time buyers here. As per engineer's report carried out on the property, what types of issues generally can we put to the vendors to fix? You can put anything you like to the vendors to fix, and quite frankly, in the current climate, vendors will probably be getting the heebie-jeebies with the whole COVID-19 coronavirus crap, and they will be negotiable enough, I would imagine. However, how far you push it is a question of how far, you know, how long is a piece of string. It's like buying a second-hand car. It's all a question of negotiation. So some issues are going to come across in your engineer's report which will be trivial. Some issues will be serious. You need to differentiate the two, and you need to differentiate then with a degree of street smarts, how far you can push the vendor. Let's face it, in the current climate, they should be probably happy to have a punter on the line for the property. I hope you can hear me okay and the sound is okay. You might just give me the old, or confirm it, will you? Johnny O.C., any advice on securing mortgage finance after the shutdown ends? Mortgage products being pulled by the banks? Absolutely. Mortgage products are being pulled by the banks at the moment. Not only are they being pulled, but they've turned off the tap in terms of distributing loans which have been granted. However, the way banks make money is they lend money. They make money on the interest. They must lend money. It is inalienable. It's look, you have to raise or have to lend money to make money. They're going to lend money again. When the shit hits the fan, they're going to close up shop for a while, but they will have to lend money again. Hi Terry, Anthony Nakwaji. I'm 21 years old, just about to register my business, which is doing well at the moment. Good enough. I'm looking to start investing in real estate in Ireland. How do I go about finding real estate deals? How much percentage wise would I be looking at? Don't know what you mean there. What you need to do is you need to not find deals but find properties. So you need to know what you're doing, you need to know what you're about, and you may or may not know what you're about. You would be well advised to become friendly with or engage the services of an architect or a surveyor. Phantom Messenger says you should be paid for your advice, nothing is free. Absolutely. Oisin Butler Limited. Bit of a mad question. I have a painting company and we're shut down at the minute. We've one job to do in a large crash in Monkstown. Ahmad Eshan. Hi Terry, hi, thanks, happy Easter. Happy Easter to you. I'm self-employed, my takeaway is closed, still have to pay rent. What kind of government help is available for me? Thanks. I've done a blog post there in the last few days and it's all about the various grants, the various supports that are available for small businesses. It's on one of my websites. I can't remember which one, quite frankly. But if you have a look at it, it's called 13. Actually, I'll find it here now. It's 13 supports for businesses. 13 supports for businesses. I think it's on. Let me just check now. I think it could be on smallbusinesslawireland.com, but the bottom line is, to be honest with you, you're on the hook for that lease. You don't have any choice but to pay the rent. You might have a landlord who's going to be very amenable to giving you a bit of cutting you a bit of slack. Hopefully he is, if that's the case. But the bottom line is, if you're on the hook in terms of a lease, you must pay. Unfortunately, when you enlist, you may soldier. Oisin Butler Limited. The crash has been partly renovated, just needs the painting to finish. It's empty of people. We can carry this work out while observing social distancing. Is there any way to get permission to do this work? Do you know? I don't believe so, Oisin Butler Limited. I don't think you're an essential service, and I don't know. I'd avoid it, to be honest with you, if I was you. I know it's difficult. Jack Farrell, have you any tips for a law student just finishing their degree that wants to sit the FE1's exams and get into employment law after? Just work hard, Jack. Study hard. Do the work. Chop wood and carry water. You got to just do the work. Show up every day. And the biggest thing that you need to be doing every day is show up. Sean Clonan. What advice would you give someone applying for paralegal type jobs as soon to be graduate? I'm in the final year of studying law. I've got admin experience in other sectors, but not in legal. Don't really have any advice for you there, Sean. There should be no problem getting some sort of work in that area afterwards. After you've graduated or whatever, should be no problem. The difficulty at the moment, though, is a lot of legal practices are suffering with this COVID-19 thing and have made layoffs and redundancies and so on. So hopefully the work will be there. But I'm sure it will, to be honest with you. I've been in business a long time, since 1986, and I've seen ups and I've seen downs. I haven't seen anything as fast as this COVID-19 crap, but it's the nature of life, it's the nature of business that there's going to be ups and downs, and you just got to hang in there and stay calm, and we will pull through it, and everybody needs to do the social distancing thing. Frank Trapp, sound and visual good. Thanks, Frank. Happy Easter to you too. Patrick Eyeball. I think it's Eyeball anyway. How do I protect equity when using for mortgage? Is there any monetary advantage for being a limited property investment company? No, there isn't any monetary advantage, and there isn't any legal advantage either. And I'll tell you why, Patrick Eyeball. Because if you use a limited company, as sure as hens lay eggs, and as sure as the Pope is a Catholic, the bank, the lender, will look for a personal guarantee from the mover and shaker, that's you, of the limited company, of the property investment company. So no great advantage there. All the limited company will do is protect you from ordinary creditors. Secured creditors are going to look for guarantees and look for mortgages. So that's the story there, Patrick. No advice about legal internships, Terry. Robert MacDonald. No, I don't. I'm not really sure what advice you're looking for. D. Fresher thinks this was a great idea. Thanks, D. Mohammed El Badawi. Sorry again. We're married with court order. Didn't see the kids and took them away without permission. Breaking HSE guideline. Mixing kids with elderly parents. Should I spoke to Garda? Um, you probably could, Mohammed, but I don't want to get involved in a family law situation where I don't know all the circumstances. So, in any dispute, and I've told people this time after time after time, in any dispute, there's three sides at least. There's your side, their side, and the truth. And that's what I've discovered over a period of time. So can't get involved in your situation. You do what you think is best. If you have a court order, by all means, she's in breach of the court order. She may well be in breach of the government guidelines in terms of bringing kids to grandparents and so on and so forth as well. Yes, I'm not sure she can be brought to law for that though. Joshua Everett, what percentage of the house price should I be charging for yearly rent? What security is needed to get a loan? Currently, what are the interest rates? Haven't a clue on interest rates and home loans, Joshua. But I mean, if you just Google home loans, if you Google any of the major lenders, you're going to find the interest rates. So I'm not really sure why you're asking me that. What security is needed to get a loan? Like, likelihood is it's going to be the bank, or it's going to be the property itself. But you may well need to give personal guarantee as well. But they may well be happy just to take the security on the property itself. That's generally the situation. Michael O'Donnell. Happy Easter, Michael. I've lodged a discriminatory dismissal case against the multinational I was working for. I've since been diagnosed with a stress disorder. Would it be advisable to add that to my case? Or is it over egging the pudding, as you would say? I certainly would. You've lodged a discriminatory dismissal case against the multinational I was working for, and you've been diagnosed with a stress disorder. You could advise it, but the difficulty there is if you've only been diagnosed now with a stress disorder, the employer will be able to argue that they knew nothing about it. And let's face it, you didn't either until you were diagnosed relatively recently. So it's up to yourself. But generally, my approach in relation to WRC claims would be to put in as many claims as you can into one form, and after that, then you can let them be knocked out or whittled down. But you're going to defend your position, and you're going to, even from a negotiation and from a tactical viewpoint, put as much pressure on the other side as you can, you know. Robbie Crockwell, can I use the pressure of lockdown as a defence for domestic murder? Don't think so, Robbie. No. Jason Jallat. Hi, I'm thinking of renovating my home. Cost approximately 100 grand. Do you recommend that I wait until next year? Is labour and material costs likely to come down in price because of coronavirus? Depends how you're going to do it. You may do it by direct labour, that is, you managing the thing yourself, and that can be a tricky prospect, can be a tricky project if you don't have any experience. On the other hand, you might get a builder in and go with a fixed price contract. And if you do, well, then in that situation, you've got a fixed price. It's up to yourself whether to wait and do it now or wait until next year. But my view would be that if and when the coronavirus situation blows over or is, kind of resolved here, and it could be 3 or 4 months, I would imagine there'll be a lot of small builders and a lot of small tradespeople out there who will be only too mad or very anxious, obviously, to get new work. So I wouldn't be waiting for too long, but I certainly would wait for this thing to um, to blow over. Sean Carr, happy Easter, Terry. Happy Easter, Sean Carr. You had big issues with the previous solicitor. He's refusing to give him a receipt for cash I gave him. Law Society won't investigate. What can I do? Keep up the great work. Don't really know about that one now. If the Law Society won't investigate, I would have thought that that is something that the Law Society would normally look at if there is prima facie evidence of a case to answer, I suppose, but it's down to the Law Society. We're looking at a receipt here, though, for cash he gave the solicitor. I don't know the background to this. I'm sure there's a few other layers to it. I'm sure if you got down and dirty into the weeds of it, there's probably more than meets the eye in this particular question. So if the Law Society don't investigate, I can't see any legal cause of action that's open to you to get a receipt for cash that you gave a solicitor. To be honest with you, I think that's all I can say there. David O'Donovan, great idea. Love all the videos. We have an employee who has been placed on temporary layoff. We now wish to make the employee redundant. Any advice? She's been placed on temporary layoff for 6 weeks. I think there's no difficulty making the employee redundant once you follow the proper redundancy procedures in accordance with the Redundancy Acts. However, I do know from the point of view in terms of layoff, from the employee's perspective, the emergency COVID legislation has suspended the employee's entitlement whilst on layoff to serve a notice for redundancy. However, not so sure about the employer's entitlement to make the employee redundant. But obviously it is a situation where if an employer genuinely puts an employee on layoff and then discover, and let's face it, layoff is supposed to be a temporary suspension of the employment on the basis that you're unable to provide work on a temporary basis and you believe that's the case. If you now decide that you no longer believe it's going to be a temporary situation, that you must make them redundant, I think you're entitled to do that. I don't think there's difficulty, but you do need to follow the procedure. And the procedure would be to go through, or certainly to give the notice that's required in accordance with either the contract or statute, the minimum notice. Craig Murphy, what issues would arise with using a solicitor to purchase a house? This live chat is brilliant. Still have to give the brown bread a go. Brown bread is bulletproof. It's my secret of my success is my brown bread. What issues would arise with using a solicitor to purchase a house? What issues? The only issues that could arise with a solicitor purchasing a house would be that the solicitor failed to do a reasonable or good job and basically was negligent, professionally negligent. I'm not suggesting that solicitors would be professionally negligent, but I suppose it happens from time to time that a solicitor will do a bad job, a job that's not in accordance with the standards that you're entitled to expect, and therefore they are professionally negligent. So that's the only issue you're going to really run across in terms of a solicitor. Although I suppose on a human level, one of the biggest complaints that you'll always hear about solicitors is they don't return calls and so on. So not being able to, not getting calls back and not having a good sort of interpersonal relationship with the solicitor. You don't have to be in love or anything, but you know, obviously you're entitled to get calls and you're entitled to know what's going on and not be treated like a mushroom. So they're the issues really you need to worry about. Do let the solicitor do the bloody job though, and don't be hassling them, you know. Now, what issues? Is your new HR book available in the libraries across Ireland? No, it's not, and it's not new either. It's updated there last year, I think, towards the end of 2018 or 19. I updated it. It's not in libraries. No, you can get it on Amazon or you can get it on Kindle. Jerry, son of Mick. Mortgage frozen under the beer virus. MP to be paid only. Having the bulls there, Jerry. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're asking there. Jared Byrne, what legal requirements are there to start renting properties? Have I to get a license? Do I need an engineer or surveyor to sign off on the building's habitability, etc.? Thanks, Terry. Happy Easter. Happy Easter, Jared. No, you don't. There is some very rudimentary, basic regulations that local authorities, living standards or housing regulations or something, that local authorities are supposed to implement and enforce. That's really all. Obviously, you have to register the property or register the letting rather with the Residential Tenancies Board. After that, there's no huge impediment to letting out or selling a house. Do you need to get a license? No, you don't need a license. It's an awful pity you don't need to get a license, quite frankly, and I'm not being facetious here, but if people needed to get a license there about 10 years ago when the whole country went apeshit renting properties and becoming landlords and becoming property developers, we might have avoided an awful lot of the debt situations that we ran into. D. Fresher is asking, any tips on getting planning permission? I heard it's easier to get permission for a 2-bed than a 3-bed. It'd be North County Dublin. Don't know about that. I mean, obviously the best thing to do there would be to simply engage the services of a local surveyor or engineer who would be familiar with the local requirements of the planning authorities. And it's like the going to the local district court. Sometimes it's better to know the judge than know the law, or at least know how the judge operates than know the law, because judges have a particular penchant for certain or take certain views on certain situations. For example, dangerous driving, careless driving, or whatever, drink, public order offences. Different judges have different sort of emphasis in terms of what really winds them up. The same story applies to planning permission. Now, obviously, the planning laws are the planning laws, but if you have a local guy, a local surveyor or engineer, he is going to know the local planning authority, and indeed will probably know the planners. That will be useful, and there's pre-planning meetings you can have then as well. Louis Snyman, final year law student here. I just want to say thank you for your videos, as it helped me a lot during my studies. Thank you very much, Louis. Hi Terry, do I have to apply to the Residential Tenancies Board if I'm renting a room in my home? Kieran, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I'm not sure about that. If you go onto the Residential Tenancies website, it'll probably be clear there. I'm not sure off the top of my head, to be honest with you. Jerry, son of Mick, my question is, should I add my own statement to the paperwork to clarify my deal to pay mortgage protection and not, as the form states, interest only? I'm still not sure about your question there, Mick, or Jerry, son of Mick. Jerry, son of Mick. Mortgage frozen under the beer virus MP to be paid only. Still can't make it out. Jerry, or DJ Fernando, last one. Is it permitted here in Ireland to buy a house and divide it into flats or studios? It may be cheaper than building from zero. What do you think? Yeah, it's no problem dividing a house into flats or studios, provided you get planning permission. But it's unlikely you're going to get planning permission, because in Ireland in the last few years, we've gone away from studio apartments and studio flats and studio bedsits and so on. And we've gone for situations where each residential accommodation unit has its own facilities and not shared facilities. So, you know, it's up to yourself whether you try to go that route or not. But I mean, it's not just a question of cost. You do need to be mindful of the planning permission and building regulations. So that's it. A lot of interesting questions there, a lot of them to do with property and so on. I still can't figure out Jerry, son of Mick's question. Mortgage frozen under the beer virus MP to be paid only, but form to fill out states payment interest only. Should I add my own statement to this? Don't know that. Generally, there's an interesting question there. Any negative feedback from others in law about doing YouTube? No negative feedback at all, no. And I'm amazed that other lawyers haven't done it to the same extent that I've done it. And to be quite frank, I'm absolutely dumbstruck because I'm doing this with my mobile phone. And let's face it, everybody has a mobile phone in their pocket. And yet, I'm the only one who appears to have just gone to town basically on YouTube. And I'll continue to do that because for me, it's a great source of leads. It's a great source of clients. It allows me to build trust and allows me to build confidence and it allows some people to even like me because of the fact that they can see me talking and they can hear me and they can form their own view about me and they can see me doing stuff in my daily life and so on. All of these things are possible in person. All of these things are possible on video, but they're not possible with the written word. I'm a great fan of the written word as well, but the use of video is very, very powerful from a marketing perspective. And I can't understand, quite frankly, why other solicitors don't do it. But hi Terry, do you know what revenue means by hardship allowance when it comes to paying inheritance tax? Is there anything in place beside the 16-month payment scheme? I don't know about that. That's getting down very granular to the weeds in terms of a taxation issue and whether you are allowed to defer the payment of any inheritance tax you might have over a certain period of time. Not sure about that, Michael, to be honest with you. Michael Dunn, continue, Terry. Your videos are much appreciated. Keep up the good work. I certainly will. Thank you very much. I see it as free advertising and an outreach for possible clients and create a reputation. Priceless in my view. I agree with you. Mr. Dave, in your honest opinion, do you think our court system is fair? Take a look at Ben Gilroy with housing cases. In my opinion, I think the court system is fair. Yeah, I don't think it's perfect, but I do think it's fair. And I think the alternatives are appalling, and the alternatives are frightening. And I think the system, quite frankly, has served us well. That maybe not what you want to hear, but all I am going to say is what I believe. So, Mr. Des, how's it slanging, Terry? Not sure what to say about that now, Mr. Des. Seamus O. Tierney. Is it better to sign property over while alive or will on death, tax-wise, etc.? Doesn't make any difference, I don't think, because the tax allowance will depend on the degree of relationship between the donor and donee, or the disponer in a will or the disponee. So the tax allowance is the same whether it's on during a life, that is as a gift, or whether it's on death, that is as part of a probate situation. So the tax situation is the same. It will depend on the degree of relationship between the donor and the donee. So I don't think it makes any difference. Can you see good deals coming along in the next year or two? Anthony, good deals come along all the time. Good deals come along every day of the week, quite frankly. And even though the current COVID-19 situation is a complete shitstorm, I can guarantee you, there is people out there making a few bob because they're exploiting a weakness or they're exploiting something or other. For example, anybody that's in the PPE equipment area in the last 3-4 weeks would have made a killing. Anybody in various other areas, I mean, let's face it, if you find a vaccine to this bloody thing, you're going to make a lot of money. So there's always deals, there's always opportunities. You need to be wide to them. Mr. Dave, what do you make of the family courts? Mary Byrne, are you only advising on property? No, Mary, I advise on everything, including business, employment law, litigation, personal injuries, property. I even give some life advice sometimes because I look at stuff and I observe stuff and I notice things. And when I notice something that's half useful, I tend to share it with other people because I think that's a good idea. Jerry, son of Mick, I applied for mortgage to be frozen under the COVID. I got form from them stating I pay mortgage protection only, but where I signed says I pay. Jerry, son of Mick, I'm afraid you're going to have to take that up with your bank. I don't know what's the story there with that mortgage being frozen situation. Obviously, it's down to the bank whether they're going to freeze it or not, or give you the benefit of that break. Hopefully they will, and hopefully they'll be able to clarify whatever issue you have or whatever query you have. I can't advise you, though, to tell lies in your... I'm not suggesting that you're saying that either, but I can't advise you to mislead or put in any false information or anything like that but I don't even know whether you're asking about life assurance or what. Will this Q&A be in your videos on your channel? I think it will. Yeah, I think it will. Ali 432HZMC, is it true that all acts need the people's consent? All acts, I presume you mean the acts of Parliament. Acts of Parliament, or acts that end up in the statute books, are obviously put there by the Dáil, sitting and passing legislation and enacting it. And the Dáil is put there by the people. So, yeah, indirectly or directly, the people basically decide the government, and the government decides the legislation. And if you don't like the legislation that the government is making, then you just change the government. That's how it works. It may not be perfect, but the alternative, North Korea, Russia, the alternative is fairly rocky. Lobster Mac, Terry Brown bread is dead. Long live sourdough. Jesus, I'm doing sourdough big time now. I'm all over the sourdough and have been for months. And I've been all over the sourdough long before the COVID-19 shit hit the fan. So have a look at my Instagram. I've some lovely photographs and videos of sourdough bread on my Instagram. In fact, I put up a photograph there this morning, or a video on Instagram, in my Instagram stories, of a sourdough bread that I made with walnuts, and it looks very, very nice. And speaking of looking very nice, I'll be getting to test that in 15 minutes time, 1 o'clock, when this ends, and I'm going to have my lunch. But the sourdough with walnuts, check out my Instagram. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of useful stuff on my Instagram there as well you should have a look at. Gorry Solicitor, all right? What do you think of no win, no fee? I think it's a great idea as a principle, but only if you're the punter. I know, Liam, no win, no fee is fine. It depends on the situation. I don't do much of it, but I do, from time to time, act for people on a no win, no fee basis. Rarely enough, but it can happen that you have an impecunious person who simply cannot afford the cost of a case at the outset, and you will act for them. And obviously, if it is a successful conclusion, well, then you're going to get paid. And if it's not a successful conclusion, well, unfortunately, you're not going to get blood out of a stone or blood out of a turnip. So D. Keen, thanks Terry, great channel. I'm looking at tax efficient investments such as UK investment trust and employment investment incentive. Any opinions on these or alternatives? I don't have any specific opinion on UK investment trust or employment investment incentives, but I do know that investing in stocks and shares, if you can afford it over a period of time, is a no-brainer. The only difficulty with stocks and shares is you can't really leverage the same way you can with property. But over a period of time, all you need to do is sit down and get out or bang out Google there, put in a search, and do a search for the performance of property versus equities over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years, and you'll see that equities perform very, very well. And the investment incentive or UK investment trusts that you refer to there, I presume those those trusts are investing in shares and stocks and shares, as they all are. They're going to be investing in a mix of shares, properties, and cash. It's the same old. But shares actually are a good investment over the long haul. But unfortunately, in the last like 3 months or so, since the COVID-19 shit hit the fan, then shares are after crashing. But they will come back. They will come back because the shares, remember, are still valuable, except the price of the shares has fallen. Now, obviously, some industries and some businesses will be hit hard, but in the long run, they will come back, I believe. Sorry to Jesus. Mr. Dave, how much does it cost to consult with you about a personal injury and what information do I need? A consultation with me costs 100 quid, and you need to give me a synopsis or an outline of what occurred in relation to causing you the personal injury. And then we can take it from there. If there's any further information I would need, I would ask you maybe to send the medical report or what you did in terms of going to get medical assistance and so on. But the most important, or one of the most important aspects of it, would be who is liable or responsible for your injury, do you say? In other words, in order to hold somebody liable for your injury, they must be negligent. It can't be just something that you've done to yourself or just a simple accident. And there has been a sort of a development in the last while where insurance companies and indeed courts are being more exacting and more thoroughgoing, I suppose, in terms of checking liability and testing and defending and fighting personal injury claims. So that's something that you'd want to be careful about. So there's two aspects to it. A, what injuries did you suffer? And B, is there somebody liable for those injuries? Is there somebody's negligence which caused those injuries? Michael O'Donnell, any personal thoughts on modular homes? Do you think it's pointless buying as there's no appreciation? Depends, Michael, on your purpose for investing or buying. If it is only to live in the place and you're not concerned about investment, then there's nothing wrong with a modular home. However, if you're thinking about investment and so on and so forth, yes, complete waste of space. And that's, from an investment point of view, because the market that you're going to sell to down the line is going to be severely limited, because if the purchaser requires a bank loan, well, then they're going to have a difficulty getting a loan. In fact, they may not get mortgage approval. And if that's the case, your market has suddenly shrunk from 100% down to about 15%. That is, 15% of your potential market have cash and can buy cash, or can buy your property, your modular home, with cash. Any thoughts of moving abroad for a couple of years to a tax efficient country to cash out assets stored in a limited company? Don't have any thoughts on that. No, that's taxation advice you're looking for. Don't really have any advice there, Lobster Mac. It seems to me to be a bit drastic, and I would have thought that Ireland is a fairly benign country from a tax management and tax point of view, because when you see the likes of Dennis O'Brien and various other people who have very beneficial and efficient tax arrangements, and I'm not sure whether they've moved out or not, maybe they have, but it seems to be fairly drastic. Ed Horgan, are private pensions under threat of appropriation by the government if credit lines get squeezed? I doubt it very, very much, Ed. I don't know whether you have any inside information or not there, but I mean, a private pension under threat of appropriation would suggest a serious and fundamental breach of a constitutional right to private property. So I doubt it, but you never know. D. Fresher, Derry, by having my dad's house and nothing owed on it, would that help me getting a mortgage? It certainly would. When you put bet the farm, as it were, or put it up for sale, or put it up as security, you're going to have a better chance, all right, of getting a mortgage. clearly you're in a far better position to most people trying to get a mortgage. Skill tea, soda bread, butter, cold or hot? Hot. No, hot bread. What's the time frame on personal injuries? The time frame on personal injuries will range from 6 months to 6 years. And the reason for that is because if you bring a personal injury claim and the other side accepts the injuries board's assessment, then it's going to be wrapped up and paid out within, say, 6 or 9 months. However, if the other side says, no, we don't agree with the assessment, it's too much, or no, we're not liable for that and there's no bloody way we're paying out on that, then they're going to fight it and you're going to have to bring legal proceedings. In that situation, you're looking at legal proceedings which can go on for years. So you could be looking at 6 months, 6 years, 16 years, quite frankly. And if you ever read a book by Charles Dickens called Bleak House, involving a famous probate case, then you'll understand exactly what I mean about litigation taking on a life of its own and sometimes being taking so long as to be not worth the candle. Angela, Terry, what do you think will happen with the housing market now with the COVID virus? Certainly the housing market is going to be affected by the COVID virus. I'm not sure you're going to see any great dramatic drop or whatever, but look, I'm just a punter like you in that regard. I'm a solicitor, remember. I have experience of property investment, etc., but I've lost my shirt as well in property when the shit hit the fan a few years ago and the market crashed. But it's difficult to see how the COVID-19 coronavirus catastrophe, and it is a catastrophe, both on a human level and economic level, it's difficult to see how that wouldn't affect the property market. Now, I'm not saying the property market is going to go down or anything of that nature, but it's hard to see any great upside at the moment. Having said that, where we're sitting now, Easter bank holiday weekend, COVID-19, we're in lockdown, it's hard to see upside anywhere. We're not even looking at the bloody football championship. We're not looking at hurling championship. It's absolutely disastrous. We can't even go to the pub for a pint. Having said that, in 6 weeks' time, 7 weeks' time, hopefully we'll have a completely different view, and hopefully Kildare will be going out in the Leinster final, kicking the crap out of the Dubs or something of that nature. Can you do anything about the volume? I don't think so, but all you have to do is turn up the volume, I think, on your computer, because earlier on I asked people was it okay and I was told that the volume was fine. So blockchain, fix a mortgage or leave it variable, 11 years left to pay it off. My view, and it's only a view, look, you could toss a coin. I think I would leave it variable. I can't see interest rates rising, quite frankly, but you never know. Seamus or Tierney, renovate an old 100-year house versus flatten and build from you. It depends where it is, Seamus. I did this myself, actually, in a house there between Kinnegad and Edenderry. And I did it, renovated an old house. It looked beautiful at the end of it all. Lovely black stone. It was a 1.5 story thing. And it was a fucking money pit, quite frankly. It was a money pit. So, now it's a nice house and I did a good job on it. But it can be difficult. Again, it depends on where your house is. It depends on the value of the site as well. I mean, the site may be very, very easy to get a site around your area. Terry, your sourdough bread is calling. It's 12:56. Absolutely. I'm getting Jerry son of Mick Slán agus Gorama got Makara. Slán agus Gorama got Jerry. Lobster Mac, cheers, happy Easter. Jerry son of Mick, happy Easter. Thanks, Terry. Michael O'Donnell, do you know any experience with leasing schemes where the local council taking over property and he pays you directly? Yes, I've done that. I've done that for a client. D. Fresher, Toucher Mead, man. No, I'm a Kildare man. I played football at Kildare. Ty Kilcummins, Terry, Oliver Wendell Holmes was quoted saying, the life of the law has no logic, it only has experience. Would you agree? I'm not sure about that now. I need to think about that, Ty. Any tips for buying a site? Buy in the best location you can afford, DJ Fernando. Defresher up the oil. Okay. Ed Horgan, my employment contract is full-time. I've been forced into a 50% pay part-time contract. Is my employer obliged to issue me with a part-time contract? I don't know how long it's for or whether this is a permanent situation or only a temporary situation. He could vary or modify your existing contract by issuing you with a one-page statement or, even a couple of phrases. So it's not absolutely essential. I don't believe, because you do understand the terms and conditions, and perhaps the only aspect of your existing contract which has changed is the hours of employment. That may be the only situation that's changed. Obviously your pay will be modified as well, proportionately. Thanks for the time. Okay, happy Easter everybody. I'm going to head off now. Thanks for signing up or for coming onto the live stream. Hope you found it useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below, and I will be doing a new live stream in the not too distant future. I will do another one. I may try to deal with specific issues on live streams going forward. In other words, I'll have one for example, starting a business or running a business. I might have one for property, buying a property, selling a property. I might have one for employment law and so on. I'm going to have to give it some thought, etc. But I will review the feedback from this one. I'll have a look at the comments, and I will keep it up. Thanks for your kind comments and so on. Happy Easter, everybody. All right.